Okay, we'll start with Gangu's question. So if you look at the title, because he asked the same question while having lunch, it is motives slash desires, right? Desires are because of motivations, or desires result in motivations, right? So this is more animalistic, right? That's why we're calling it animal consciousness. If you observe the animal behavior or behavior of the animals, then you'll notice that one of the motivations besides food, rest, and sex is also avoiding fear. So, is the avoidance of fear. So, they are fearful of certain things, and that is because for the security of their body. So, that is one of the motivations.
Also, like because they're afraid, they are more careful and cautious and
Yes.
and aware of the danger, so then
Yeah.
they have more adrenaline and can run away.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, so for this, we'll be watching one of the documentaries today evening, first one, which is about 5 to 7 minutes, which is about this Yellowstone National Parks, where wolves were introduced and what impact it had. So in that, you can see how the grazing animals change their path because of the fear of the wolves, and that has an impact on the ecosystem. Yes, please. Pass the mic.
Again, going to the fear thing, if it is the fear, it's avoiding fear. Firstly, what is the fear about? What kind of fear are we trying to avoid? And secondly, I was discussing this with Sheila ma'am also earlier, that food, rest, fear, and sex, maybe when we come to the human level, they are not the driving factor. Like in subhumans, I think these are the driving factors, and it's still there, but it's not a driving factor. But fear is something that I want to understand. How come it is not there? Food, rest, and sex, I do understand, but fear, wala.
Okay, the fear, uh, the most primary fear is fear of death. Okay, then there is also fear of loss of respect. Right? There is also fear of loss of wealth. Right? And there is fear of loss of status in society. Right? Like you have some position, like maybe you are the the head of the village or something, like your prime minister, chief minister. So you have some responsible position in society or community, and you might lose that. So humans, these are the four kinds of fears which are there. Okay. So the fear of death is because we think of ourselves as bodies. Right? So till the time we realize that we are Jivan and Sharir and body, uh, this fear will be there with us. So when the full spiritual awakening takes place and you see yourself as Jivan, the entity Jivan, you can see yourself like that. So then you are able to see the difference between the body and you. And that in that moment, the fear of death disappears. Okay? The fear of, say, losing respect, right? Like your respect in society. You do something and you build up your reputation, loss of reputation. That is also a fear. Right? So that is there because we ourselves are not able to rely on our own behavior at times. In certain conditions, I might make the wrong decisions. That comes from lack of knowledge of the humane conduct. So how? So once you become aware in that and you start practicing, then you lose that fear also. Right? Fear of wealth is because you think of yourself as a body. So you need resources. Your existence is dependent on that. So once you have the realization that you're Jivan and you have the body, which enables you to generate as many resources as you need for yourself or your family, with that confidence of being able to live happily and prosperously, then that fear of wealth also goes away. Because that shifts from, instead of wealth, it shifts to the confidence of being able to generate wealth. So it goes away from that. So if you are in a humane occupation and you are able to fulfill the needs of your family, then this won't be there, right? Because it now is coming from the confidence that you can live in this nature and with this community. That is where it comes from. And the last was the position, right? So position is, again, right now it's part of our identity right now, right? We think of it as a spatial thing or some rights which we get. Present state, it is there because we have to manipulate so many things, and to get to there, we have exploited so many things. So there are other people working on it to get to the same position. So they might snatch it away. That's why the fear is there. So whereas after realization, you become responsible. So wherever you are, like whether in your family, so you are fulfilling the responsibility of the family. When you are in the community, you see this needs to be done, you're fulfilling so your whatever responsibilities you're doing are practically, you're living those responsibilities. That is your status in this community or society. So it is not based on inflated position in society because you manipulated something. It is based on actually what you're living. So therefore that fear also goes up. So 4 kinds of fear are there.
So when you also said that from subhuman to human plus plus, it's a spiritual awakening that happens. That the 5.5 activities, right?
So to move from here to here, we need spiritual awakening.
Yeah.
Which is a conscious decision. We have to identify ourselves somewhere here, and decide, no, I want to be there. For that, then you start learning, start increasing your awareness, and then you arrive there. Okay? Any other question about this? Okay, then we go back to the values table. We have to talk about trust. So confidence and trust. In Hindi we use the word Vishwas, which works for both. But here when it is interpersonal, we call it trust. And when it's in sense of yourself, it is being called confidence. Okay? So what is the point of understanding in this? So confidence or trust is basically by knowing that things are so. Like you can trust a person if you know this person is so. Therefore you can trust. So when you do the right evaluation, that means you're respectful to the person, then you would know this person is so. Right? So only through right evaluation can you trust a person. Right? But how do you get this ability? So the confidence, which we're talking about here, in the sense of self, it comes from 3 knowledges, 3 areas of knowledge, which is knowledge of self, which is the knowledge of human being, which we do by the study of human being. So that gives us self-confidence, because then now we understand ourselves as jeevan, and we understand our abilities as human being, role of the body, role of the jeevan, everything you are able to understand. So therefore that gives you self-confidence. You know what you are and what your abilities are. So knowledge of self, or what we call study of human being, gives you self-confidence. Right? Then this is actually related to the first 3 questions we did. The fundamental question, I, the knowledge of I, the knowledge of the world, and the knowledge of happiness. Right? So the second confidence comes and it is called confidence in the present, or trusting the present. Whatever is happening in present, like this wind is blowing, this forest is here, humans are here, if you understand them, under what principle they are working, if you understand the order, then there is nothing unknown to you. You know, the tree is going to behave like this, the wind is going to do this, animals are going to do this, humans are capable of doing this, all those 5 things. So you know what is what. And therefore, you can trust, or you have confidence in the present. There is nothing unknown to you now. Right? So you know how to deal with, how to respond to it. So that gives you trust in the present, or confidence in the present. And the third is the confidence in living happily. Or in other words, if I were to say the same thing, confidence in living in humane conduct. That comes from the study of humane conduct, which we are doing right now. We've started this in this workshop. Right? So by knowing that, then you understand the way, what is the orderly way of living for a human being. Once you understand that, you equip yourself with the abilities to live like that, then you get that confidence. And you can live in humane conduct, or you can live happily. So these are the 3 confidences which a human being needs. Confidence in self, confidence in present, and confidence in living in humane conduct. On basis of this, one is able to trust the nature, one is able to trust the other human beings, one is able to trust. And trust doesn't mean that having blind faith that they will do this. Right now we use it wrongly. Right? Somebody asks for money, I say, I trust you, and I give you the money. This is not trusting, this is having faith in that. You expect that this person will return it. It's more of an expectation rather than trust. Trust would be, if there is a possibility this person's personality is like this, might not return it. And then there could be a factor of knowing, oh, this person will definitely not return it, but since this person asked, I can give this person money. I have, I can give it. Or I don't have, so I can't give. So trust is in knowing. Trust is from knowing, not without that. Trust is not in believing or blind faith. Right? Charu, is it okay? Any questions on trust now? Since this was your query and yours.
I just wanted to know that when a child and a mother relationship make that is, you said that it trust built on proper evaluation. So when I'm a child, so that time I trust my parents, or just the faith that they are good to me, or
What do you think?
I don't know.
Let's use the Kumara technique.
I think faith.
Right. Because trust will come through knowledge. So every journey started with faith, and we can build it towards trust by enabling the other through awareness and education. If we are aware and educated, then we can help enable the other become aware and educated and knowledgeable.
So you are saying that there is knowledge of self, there is also confidence of living in humane conduct. Knowledge of self, so I understand that. I've,
And knowledge of coexistence, which will give you the confidence in present, and the knowledge of human conduct, which will give you confidence in living in human conduct. 3 things. Yeah, go on.
yeah, yeah. because we had a different school of thought
Yes,
which was
yes,
there,
yes.
it kind of is difficult to understand this. If you can elaborate by an example. For example, when we were discussing this in our organization, there was a lot of conversation about terrorism and rapists, and how the trust factor comes into play with certain people. So if there's anything that you can help us out with.
See that different school that you're talking about is a different approach to bring your attention to certain things. Right? I'm using a different approach. I'm rooting everything in you. I'm saying you watch yourself, study yourself, what you see in self. Like for example, you see that in certain situations you are able to fulfill a responsibility, but in different situations you waver off and you don't fulfill your responsibility. So the other can be like this. If you can see the other in your own light, then you can trust the other. Also, you study the other person, what they are doing. You also guess about what is their motives, what is their personality, what is their level of awareness. So, by right evaluation, by respecting them, you will get a basis of trusting them. Right? I mean, you and I, how can we talk about terrorists? What's going on in their heads? Right? See, I'm taking the interpretation of Jivan Vidya as this is a system of knowledge for common man to live like a normal human being. Right? We're not addressing the extremes in the introductory workshop. So any other question on this?
Trust, faith,
Yeah. So
trust, faith, and confidence.
yeah.
Okay, okay, got it. So can I share a little trust, faith, and confidence
Sure.
incident?
Yeah.
Uh, do you remember? Well, if it's a person, it's us. Do you remember when Drishta wanted to come to Missouri by herself and stay with Nani, and you had to have trust that we, Nanu and I, would be able to take care of your child? Remember that?
Yeah.
And she was gung ho on coming with Nani.
Yes.
So we sat in the bus, and every so often I would say, Drish, you can get off any time you want before the bus starts, and you can go back home if you feel so. So that gave her a little bit of tasalli that all was well. On the way also, I told her, I said, if you're still feeling homesick and you want to go home, I will get onto the next bus and take you home. That gave her some tasalli. When we finally arrived home, and it was night time, I went and had a bit of a wash. She had crawled into bed, and she was facing the other side. And when I looked over at her, there was a little. So I said, Dish, you want to talk to your mom and dad? Go ahead, there's the phone. You can talk to them anytime you want, as often as you want. Then she got up, had a long conversation with mom or dad or mom and dad, and the rest of the trip was happy. I told her, if you want to get up and leave tomorrow morning, I will take you straight home. No problem. There is absolutely no problem. You are free to stay. You are free. I will love you as much whichever way it goes. That gave her confidence, and she enjoyed her trip.
Yeah. So we
true.
had faith in you. She had faith in you,
And she
and
grew
because
in
of
confidence.
and she got the confidence because of that.
That was the story I just wanted to share.
Right. So when we start living like this, then we can approach this. It starts happening from this level itself, from the level of these three: generosity, courage, and this, happiness and peace. Then with this, contentment, and with this, bliss. We'll go address it in another slide soon. Okay? But I wanted to talk about these two. The production values, usefulness and aesthetics. Okay? So like for example, we talked from one day in the middle that about work, and in which we were talking about production of goods and or services. So when you are producing a good, like you take the wood and you want to make furniture out of it, suppose. So the raw material comes from the nature, from the ecosystem. And you process this. When you process it, you instill some values in it. So the first value you instill in it is the usefulness. You increase its utility. Right? So wood is useful for certain thing, but when you work on it, suppose you plane it, you cut it into the right uniform shape and join it to make a chair, then the utility of the wood for that particular pieces has increased. It can now be used as a chair or a table or a bed. Right? So it's become useful. This value of usefulness or utility value, this is consumed by the body. When somebody sits on it, on the chair, the body of that person is utilizing that value, the usefulness, how comfortable it is. Right? The another value that you can build in, and why does this come in? Aesthetics is very important. Any production work, any occupation that you do is part of your life. It is a thing which you do daily. If you were making furniture every day, after some time, because of the repetition, it will become mechanical, and at times it becomes boring because it is mechanical. The mechanical things bore human beings. Right? What engages the interest or attention of human beings? It is what we call things which are alive. What we mean by that is when the human attentions are exchanged. So the carpenter who's working on the chair does some creativity on this chair, does some carving on it. Now he doesn't know who the consumer is going to be. So it's an indirect communication by the carpenter with the consumer who's going to use the chair, who's going to see the chair. So when there are chairs lying together, when one has gone to purchase and one sees, oh, what a nice chair, what a beautiful chair this is. It has got some lovely carving. Let's take this one. This is the receptivity of that aesthetics value of carving which this producer has inbuilt into that chair. Interestingly, the utility value was being consumed by our body. The aesthetics value is consumed by the jeevan. Jeevan is the one which savors the aesthetics value, the conscious part. We are the ones who appreciate the beauty of it. Right? So, even in the mechanical process, if we are able to connect with the humans indirectly through aesthetics, then that same process, because of the creativity and the communication, becomes engaging. It is not boring anymore. Right? And you can be creative in so many ways in it. So that is the aesthetics value in production. So if you are engaged in production work, then this usefulness or utility value and aesthetics value, this is what you instill through your work. And in exchange of this, you take what you take, right? So when you do the work, you can give a chair and you can take money or some other things in exchange. This would be called a fair exchange. Okay. So production work, the values are, so if you're doing any production work, you have to look at the utility of the thing. That is primary. Is it useful? Will it provide some value? And along with that, the aesthetics of it. Right? I really like the aesthetics of this building, but what I love most is the utility of this. It is such a beautiful building, but it is such a useful building also. Right? Because of the usefulness, I want to live in it because it will be comfortable for my body. And because of the aesthetics, I'm going to enjoy living in this body if I have a house like this. Right? So that is the usefulness and the aesthetics in the production value. Right. So when you're doing production, right? Say, suppose you were doing a tailoring thing. You were taking some cloth and then you are stitching it up into clothes for people to wear. Now, since this is going to be your occupation, you're going to do it for a long time, right? And the more you do it, the more expert you will become at it, more good you will become, because skills hone and then you improve, right? So when you start doing it, initially your more attention is on the doing it right, right? So doing it right basically means the clothes are wearable, right? So the usefulness of the clothes is important, right? But because you are repeatedly doing it now, every day you are doing it, this process can become mechanical. That could be a possible problem which could arrive and which arrives in the assembly line works because there is no scope for aesthetics, creativity. Right? If you see the Charlie Chaplin movie Modern Times, you can see it has been like caricatured in that very well. So this problem that production work, because we are engaging with raw material from nature and there is no response back from it, the kind of response humans need, which only comes from other humans. So you, through aesthetics, start communicating with your consumers in your community, in your society, right? Then your identity becomes like that. This guy is a good tailor, he does a good job, right? You must be having some favorite, maybe tailors or makers of some things. You go to that particular one because they provide not only good utility, they have also got good aesthetics. Along with that, there is another part. Aesthetics also includes the how you behave with people, how well you behave with people during exchanges. You usually go to a person for product or services whose behavior is reliable, whose behavior is pleasant. That also adds to the aesthetics value. So basically aesthetics value is consumed or savored by the jivan, the conscious aspect. And the utility value is savored by the body. And this is the scope of within the scope of production work, this is more than sufficient to do. You can be creative in your work through aesthetics and your behavior. So because it becomes creative, therefore you can do it for long periods now. Right? Otherwise, if you're not creative, you lose interest because it will become mechanical. A lot of people get what you call it, burnouts. Because there is no creativity involved anymore. Initially it was exciting. It seemed new. The newness was there. The newness is over after you have done it several times. Now what else? This question. So you need creativity. Creativity can be in a harmonious manner through aesthetics. But we need to understand how the aesthetics dynamics works. The producer, the consumer, the behavior, how they are all interconnected. Okay? Yeah.
Aesthetics conceptually is related to beauty.
Yes.
Generally, when we talk in fine arts or maybe literature everywhere, and beauty, I think, has all dimensions. Beauty has usefulness also. Beauty also has a dimension to uplift the human being in a way. Beauty also as a social phenomena. So, if we see in that respect, I think aesthetics can be understood.
Okay.
It's only about the production, like chairs or everything. It's not about the service we are getting.
That's why I added the behavior part. In the service, what would the beauty be, aesthetics be from? With like you are providing a service in your work. How can you make it aesthetically more beautiful?
Through our behavior.
By paying more attention, right? Taking more care, things like that. In services, aesthetics is related to the more to the behavior part. And I was giving very basic examples of production of chair or something like that. But yes, service is also there. That is also part of it. Yeah.
Also, I feel like
नीचे हाथ नहीं लगाओ, हाँ.
in services, like if I can make a simple Excel sheet, or I can make it a little bit more detailed, and basically keeping the need in mind. If I make things more efficient in a service, would that also count as aesthetics?
That's a utility.
But
Yeah.
basically that the utility can be fulfilled from minimum utility also. मतलब the use is being fulfilled, पर आप उसको और निखार रहे हो in the sense कि keeping in mind व्यवहार. That's what I'm asking.
So when you nikharo something or you improve it, increase it qualitatively, then you are only going to increase that value, no? See how we differentiate is that utility function is for the body and the aesthetics function is for the jivan. What appeals to the jivan is aesthetics, and what is useful for the body is the utility value in goods and services.
Wait, I was coming from there only, but like I feel that a lot of things, like a recipe, if you put it in handwriting and even a whole lot of detail you put it in, it's useful, it's clear. But a certain amount of organization, no, I feel so grateful that somebody's put some thought into where I am coming from.
Yeah.
But
So
and
now you're communicating with the person, right?
that's
Indirectly.
where I'm
so
coming
then
from.
it becomes a part of its aesthetics. Okay? Shall we move ahead? We'll talk about this happiness, peace, and contentment, bliss in another section. So I'm leaving that for the time being. Okay. Drishta, what's next? We go back to the humane conduct. Here we were talking in reference to the relationships, and basis for responsible conduct in relationships is values. In that we talked about nyaya or justice and the definition of nyaya and justice, in which we were talking about, first we talked about identifying relationships, and then we talked about interactions based in value. In that section we were talking about these values right now. form and function. Just see the mic if it works.
Would be something like I have to tweak to like अगर बच्चे को सुलाना है if we have to make a child sleep and we want to a nice rhyme for it, we can tell them a story, we can tell them a rhyme, we can tell them probably a joke or something, whatever works. But the various forms of comfort that we give to them would be a form, but the function that we are trying to make that happen with, like put them to sleep, would be the function of that thing. So any productive work that we do should have such great, like irrespective of what, like whether it's a rhyme or a prose or whatever it is, if it's like something that actually does the job, it will be really good at both doing its job and also just like it would be really good just into
I got it.
it's
So you're talking about, like, if I would use the words, I would say the purpose of the thing and the activity to achieve that purpose, right? So what we're talking about is the purpose is basically whenever we are doing providing any production service, production or goods or services, let's say, right? So it is for the consumption of a human being. So since it's a consumption of the human being, we can improve our goods and services by addressing both the issues. What the both the issues? Its utility value also has to be good, and its aesthetics values also has to be good. Then the other person also associates it with it well, but that is a strategical maybe reason. But while you're working, it also enriches you. So it allows you to express your creativity. That is the key I'm talking about. Because the biggest problem in work is the burnout or the boringness of the mechanical repetitiveness in that. So how do we address that? So that is where the aesthetics comes in. But aesthetics without utility at times can go haywire. If you just focus on aesthetics and you don't give any utility, then yeah. Shall we move ahead? Okay. So we had talked about mutual evaluation after this. We have already said this is a form of communication, regular communication of how we are doing in this. This part we have already identified. So basically evaluation is of this, right? How successful I am on my part of being responsible, by what values am I bringing into the relationship now. This evaluation we both do. Similarly the other person. You want to say something? Okay. And all this results in, next. Yeah, in mutual fulfillment, right? What happens? Okay, so we want to show the mutual evaluation slide also. Let's go there. Both partners in the relationship, right? Evaluate how much I am bringing to the relationship, what you are bringing to the relation, and because it's a common goal of growth and completeness, and how our progress is going on, right? So when we do a mutual evaluation, whatever comes out common in both their evaluation, that becomes an achievement. Whatever differences they find with each other's evaluation gives them the areas to work. These are the gaps we talked about. So these gaps need to be filled. So when we do a mutual evaluation and we see I'm looking at something differently and you are looking at it differently, that means there is a gap. Now this gap has to be filled. So we make a program to fill it. Right now what we do, whenever we see a gap, there is a complaint. Then if they discover complaints towards each other in their relationship, then it is an indicator that there is lack of proper understanding of their particular relationship in one or both the partners. So if you have complaints in your relationship, संबंध में अगर शिकायत है, there are complaints in your relationships, that means there is lack of understanding in the relationship. Same. Okay. So this is the evaluation, these two parts, and if there are differences, this is how they have to be addressed. But if this is not happening, this will be happening. If this is happening, then we have to go back to the understanding part. So how do you use this? Like, if you see, I see myself having some complaint with Veda, then I don't know what problem Veda has, but I definitely have a problem with me. So I have to go back to this part, understanding. Right? Because complaint doesn't lead to anything. Right? Okay. Any questions? Yeah.
So like you said that if you have a problem with Veda, then you definitely have a problem with you.
If I have a complaint,
If I have a complaint, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. So,
if
but-
there is a problem, we should be working together to resolve it. If there is a gap.
okay. So,
So if a
gap,
complaint will be there if we are not working together.
say it again, complaint.
Complaint won't be there if we have identified the problem, there is a gap, and we both need to fulfill it. So there will already be a program to fulfill it, no? If that program is not there, then the complaint comes about. Or at least from my side, I will be attempting to address the gap, right? Yeah. Yeah. Mike.
Complain and blame, are they used interchangeably here?
No, blame is a little ahead. When you say you are the person responsible for this mishap or whatever. No. Complaint is more like, why are you not being responsible? Well, that's the initial stage. Blame is like putting everything there. Then you are preparing for a fight. When you complain is initial stages, blaming is now things are escalating. I can't hear you.
Complain means that we don't want to work with each other.
No, I have not been able to understand what the problem is, and therefore I don't know how to fix it. So I need to understand it. There is, what purpose does a complaint serve in relationships? Suppose you and I were working together, and I keep complaining with you. Neither you understand nor I understand. When I make a complaint against you, I complain to you that you're not doing this responsibly. How do you feel? Right? So, if we want to bring attention that you're not being responsible, suppose. So, the mechanism is not complaint. That's what we are talking about, mutual evaluation, that we sit down and we see, okay, we are trying to achieve this, you wanted to achieve this, you attempted this is where it fell short. So we are trying to see that. We are going to observe it together, evaluate it together. Okay. Next. Yeah. So when the evaluation is wrong, I talked a little bit about this earlier. It can be of three types. Fish. Over evaluation, under evaluation, and the misevaluation or the wrong evaluation. Something else. Right? They all are disrespectful. If you over evaluate somebody, under evaluate them, or misevaluate them, it is disrespect. Right evaluation is respect. Right evaluation always results in program for progress, program for further progress. Because when you say things are here, this is our goal, so the next step would be this. We both appreciate where the status is, right? Anything you want to add? Like saying somebody can do everything, right? That's over evaluation. Or you can't do anything, under evaluation. And saying you're a donkey. I mean, this is a very crude example I'm giving, but not treating a person as a human being, basically. Not considering the part that they also have a conscious aspect. That is misevaluation. Without understanding the conscious aspect, you don't allow people for that space. They have feelings, they have emotions, they might take time to understand things. So you don't allow that space, that is misevaluation. Okay? Next. So if all the three function properly, identification of relationship, value-based interaction, mutual evaluation, only then mutual fulfillment occurs. We've talked about this. If one partner in the relationship is fulfilling their responsibilities, then also there is mutual fulfillment for that person's part. But the mutual fulfillment for the other partner's share is still lacking, which also can be fulfilled over time if the other person is ready to understand and live with awareness. Okay. In mutual fulfillment, both partners are satisfied with their behavior as well as their partner's behavior. And this is when both the partners are doing the responsibility part. Okay. Right. So we talked about, go to the first slide of this when we were talking about humane conduct, so that talked about this. Now we'll talk a little bit about this. Okay. So this was one-to-one, and this is one with many. In social spheres, how we are traveling in buses or workspaces or in the community, right? We develop a reputation of us. People identify us. Is this person a good character or bad character? Basis of our ethics. Right? So what is, go back to that one. Yeah. Next. So one is regarding the wealth, which we are calling righteous wealth. In absence of this, there is illicit wealth. How do we get righteous wealth? By earned wealth, gifts and awards. Right? So, what this is a, I don't know, Is gifts the right translation for paritosh? Just see in the dictionary. Anji? That also, it is also used in that earth, that meaning, but the puraskar is awards, that's right. I'm talking about paritosh is you've used gifts. So what would you call what the parents provide as means to the children? Like a child has the right on clothes, food, shelter, but since child is a child, is not able to generate for himself, herself. So it's the responsibility of the parents to provide, they provide, and now it belongs to the child. The food he or she eats, or clothes they wear, or the things they use, they are their righteous wealth. So this transfer of wealth from the parents to the child for their day-to-day living is a normal process. So, but they are not earned, it can't be called earned wealth, because earning is through your efforts. So what would you call such wealth? That's the name I'm talking about. No. Did you see paritosh on awards? Okay. We'll think of a better word. We'll consult Siddharth. He's the English professor, right? Anyway, so essence is this. Like, one is earned wealth is what is earned wealth? When we do work with our efforts, and in the returns that we get, that is earned wealth, right? What is, now, not everybody can do, as we talked about this earlier, that there is only a certain age from where you can start working until a certain age. Before that and after that, you can't earn it. So where is it going to come from? So at least right now we can say in the retirement age our savings will work. But suppose in the early childhood, first 10, 15 years, where is the wealth coming from? Does the child have the right on that wealth? Definitely has. Every human being has a right. They need to eat food, they need clothing, they need shelter, and this is provided to them by their family and community. So all the things which are provided like this are also righteous wealth at a certain age. When you're not capable of earning your wealth because of the state of your body, then whatever is provided to you in healthy relationships in a with non-exploitative manner, then this is all righteous wealth. Right? This is not exploitative wealth. It's not illicit wealth. Right? And this is usually given in the hope that using this generation of children or young people will grow up into learned and responsible people, and they will become, there is a hope embedded in giving of this, that they will become learned and responsible and become a constructive part of this society. Right? So there is a hope embedded in this giving. Awards. What is awards? When you do some exemplary work for the community or for the society or the community can acknowledge that this is very useful and this should be promoted, and for this they could award you some wealth so that you expand or you take it forward. That is also righteous wealth. Right? But I'm not, because the word awards is there, I'm not talking about the awards given today, because they're all, what is the word for it? Lobbied for. Yeah. So, these are the three ways of righteous wealth. All the other wealth is illicit wealth. Next, righteous spouse. Right? When absence of righteous spouse is there, then it is the illicit relationship. Right? So this is one spouse discipline. Human beings, when they are in this relationship, feel the need of loyalty and trust. Right? They don't want to be betrayed in this relationship. One is that. Second is, when you are in community and you are interacting with people in various spheres, you come there for some other purpose. People are not looking for this engagement with you at that time. If you're already married or you're already in a relationship with anyone, then if you try to seek multiple or try to harass somebody or take advantage of somebody, that all will be an illicit relationship or a crime. All these three are kind of crimes. This we had stated in the earlier slide. Right? So righteous spouse is very important. It is basically how safe people feel around me regarding my approach or my sexual demeanor. How safe do people feel around me? That is important. It is a sense of providing safety. Righteous spouse. Whether you are in a relationship or you're not in a relationship, but is your behavior trustworthy? Are people safe with you? That is important. Right? One has to think, is this needed for a good community and a good society? All these things. Right? And the third is the kind behavior and work. Right? In absence of this kind behavior and work, there will be cruel work and behavior. Right? Kindness and cruelty. Kindness we just talked about, that there are two types of kindness with animals and two types of kindness with human beings. Here we are talking like in terms of work. So kind work, we are associating here the interactions with animals during your work, and behavior is with humans. So this is under human-human relationship. This is in human-animal relationship. So what can be cruelty? It can be damaging their bodies. It can be damaging their progeny, right? Their living spaces. All that kind of damage that we do, that could be cruel. Like I was giving earlier an example of hunting. Right? Hunting was a cruel practice. Right? So in this behavior and work is in interactions with humans and animals, and in its absence, it is cruel work and behavior. It is cruelty. And how does it play out with humans? Like in how do we present ourselves? How do we interact with people? Say in workspaces or when we are traveling or other places. How do we come across? Are we rude? Are we like aggressive, bullies, right? All these kind of characters are there, no? In the community. Let's try this. In the meantime, pass the other mic.
Will the work of a butcher be counted in cruel work behavior?
The work of the killing of an animal here would be called in cruel. Whether butcher kills or not, I don't know.
So then this society, then this social sphere would be vegetarian.
According to this, yes. You can't be kind and cruel at the same time. Now, either you're kind or you're cruel. I will pet the animals, but when I need, I'll kill it. Can't go together. Please take the mic.
If we look into why the butcher is killing animal, then we have to see beyond that, and then can we say that all the people who eat non-vegetarian, uh, they are also part of that cruel behavior. That is one part. Secondly, my main question is about righteous earnings, gift and awards. We can, as I earlier said, because earnings are for either for some work or for some production or for some services.
Right.
So right now, as we said, the valuation of these services and production is highly skewed.
Yeah.
So unless this is set right, can we call it a righteous earning?
No, we can't.
So it becomes a major problem, which can only be addressed institutionally.
Right. So that is the indication here. See, for the harmony in society, this has to be there. But if this is there, the society is going to deteriorate.
This will be defined only, I mean, this can be considered only when we understand these righteous earnings,
Yes.
righteous this thing. First we have to understand then full implications. Then
Yes.
only we can, what we can say whether this is illicit or not.
Yes, yes. So for our evaluation, we need to understand this. Where are we standing? And you're right, when you evaluate today ourselves, then to correct this is not so easy, especially this righteous wealth. Because most of our work is part of some organization and things, and most of the structures are exploitative. Most of our inheritances are through exploitation. Somebody in one of our ancestors just accumulated a lot by exploiting, and now we've got it. And we think of it as our righteous wealth. No, it's not our righteous wealth. But at least we can realize this. It's not our right. In the circumstances, present circumstances, we do have control of it. Maybe we can put it to some good use.
Yeah, individual level certainly we can.
Huh?
Individual level we can certainly can. But I think whether it's
Please,
possible,
closer. Yeah.
That's what I was saying, that at individual level, Jeevan Vidya appears to be workable.
Right.
But I think at social and institutional level, I mean, maybe, as you say,
I understand.
it may be working, but appears to be at least difficult, if not impossible.
It's very difficult in the present circumstances. You're right. I agree with you there. But what choice do we have? To continue the way we are continuing? Or try for a change. Maybe it will happen, maybe it will not.
So then we can also examine the suitability of the tool we have.
Right.
Jeevan Vidya, we found it's good for individuals, and we found, I mean, it's difficult for social institutions and institutions, bigger institutions like state. So either this is one way, that through individuals, I mean, everything will become all right. But if we see the numbers and see, I mean, this is if you see, it appears to be very disappointing.
Right, right.
So can we think of some other tools for these two? Institutional, social and institutional framework.
Right.
Can we have a relook at Jeevan Vidya itself?
I would submit to you that maybe we are jumping to a conclusion too fast. Maybe further examination of this is needed for the time being. Right? This is the first workshop, first exposure. Right? How does this personal relationship transfer to a better community? How does a better community translate to better institutions? That we need to explore further, maybe. Yes.
And moreover, I feel that what Harish sir said, that when on individual level it seems like if I work, I read a lot more about it, I can change. But on the institutional level, it seems a little tough. So, don't you think, sir, that this disparity between what I am doing and what the society is doing, because in even in the noblest of professions, currently there is a lot of corruption. There is a lot of it's completely illicit wealth. So, don't you think that creates a sort of frustration amongst people? That I want to be something else, the institution wants me to be something else. So between juggling between the two can create a sort of frustration.
Yeah. So in present state, there is a lot of frustration around, right? And it is frustration is a function of lack of awareness. So once you start understanding, that's why that resoluteness is important. That resolve is important within you. So till the time we have, there will be frustration. We don't have a be resoluteness, so therefore there will be frustration, anger, all this will be there. So the proposal here is that if you study this and you become aware in it, you understand it, then you come out of that frustration and anger, and you are able to find a way ahead, right? And it's not a very difficult thing. In fact, I would say what you guys are proposing, I think it's opposite of that. The most difficult part is the correcting of the individual self. Outside is much simpler, but this is a necessary condition to correct yourself. Till the time this happens, nothing else is going to function. That's why it seems too far off. Here we assume things will happen quick. Yes.
So you said that correcting yourself is a lot harder than correcting other people, right? But for the other person, it must be equally as hard as it was to correct themselves as it was for you to correct yourself.
Yeah.
So how is it easier to correct other people if they have to correct themselves in the same way as you had to correct yourself?
Right. So what happens is, once you have corrected yourself, now there is an example of correct behavior, which you can use authentically to put proposal in the front of the person who you want to help in correction. So now right now both of us have no clue what is correct behavior. So at least one of us should start living it. If one starts living like that, then the others can follow the example, right? That's how we've done so many things. Yes, please. Mike.
This is a personal example, and I wanted to give it the other day as well, when Nani was talking about how we are going to change things on a larger scale, but I forgot about it later, and now it is coming back to me. So during the NRC and CAA protests, there was a lot of chaos and restlessness, and like too much frustration, anger, and all those things. And it was very overwhelming to witness it, to be in the protest, and all those things. But what I noticed during those months is, when we are not actively contributing something towards the people around us, we tend to be more frustrated, and we tend to feel more helpless when we see the things on a larger scale, when we are not doing it on an individual scale. So once we started our organization and we started working with kids, and we started seeing how tiny things are having a great impact, then a sense of control came over, and we had that clarity that we are doing the best that we can given the resources that we have. We are giving the most that we are capable of right now. So that restlessness kind of evaporated. Now I'm not saying that I became indifferent to the larger causes, but I became more productive in the work that I'm doing, instead of
Right.
constantly whining and constantly being in that zone of frustration. So
Yeah.
that's one thing that I've noticed. And another thing, I'm preparing for UPSC since last 3-4 years, and I had my fair thoughts about, is it worth it, like going into the system which is already very dysfunctional.
Yeah.
But the CA wala realization made me realize that we need people into the system who are conscious, who are aware, and maybe it will be difficult for them to function, but it is necessary to bring certain awareness into the system and structures which we are constantly complaining about. So as you are saying that it all starts from the individual level, I have been experiencing it since last 1.5 years, and it is quite true.
Thank you. So, righteous wealth, righteous spouse, kind behavior and work. Any questions or clarifications on this?
This can, one spouse discipline can change, like if you get a divorce or something.
Sure. Discipline is maintaining the loyalty and trust.
And say if both of you do decide to not be in a monogamous relationship.
Then you can decide that and you can go ahead. I'm not stopping anybody from doing anything. But I'm saying the issue of loyalty and trust will crop up. That is what the issues which come up. Because we want the relationship by design is like when you come close with somebody, you not come close to separate from them. We're not able to continue, therefore we separate. But initially when we come close, we hope we'll continue. And when you break away, then there is some sort of a complaint. There's some sort of blame there. That always hurts. And you're inviting it if you have multiple partners here. Because the trust can never form. Because there is a tendency in us, in this relationship, if you see, all across the cultures, wherever they might be accepted that multiple partners or whatever, but there is the indicator that loyalty is appreciated much more than the disloyalty part. Like even in today's world where partners are changing so rapidly, it is expected that you, at one time you should be in one. People are trying what you're saying, like at the same time, let's be with multiple people. But if you see movies and stuff like that, a lot of media is also talking about this doesn't work actually. There are a lot of issues which crop up. You think of it as it's just an interaction, but there are problems. I mean, there are other media and movies also which say no, it works and things like that. But I'm saying this debate is still going on. But here, what I've understood from this is that this need to be able to trust your partner is so important. It is a kind of a assurance which is needed. Then only can you open up about yourself. No? Like somebody who's grown up with you and who has seen you in your ups and downs and is loyal to you and you trust them, they trust you, you can talk about anything about them. Otherwise, when you suppose you are with multiple partners, then only certain things you'll share. So that witnessing each other's journey part doesn't work out. That is the biggest joy. When you are doing something and the other, see, like when I do something, you can see my action. Right? I gave this example earlier, I'm just reminding you. With that action, you can make a guess towards what could be my choices behind it. Behind those choices, what is my thinking behind it? Behind that thinking, what is my planning behind it? Right? Behind that, what is my understanding? The number of steps you are able to discover about me, that much you know me. So for this, we need to have a lot more trust that when I open up with my partner or she opens up with me, how much can we see of each other? And that is the biggest joy of human beings, when we are able to see the other as the person is.
I was asking this primarily coming from the point of view that this was from the 7 relationship, this was the only relationship that you said is exclusive, and also that this is going to come, like this is a very ideal world. Like abhi अभी जहाँ पर हम लोग हैं, it is really hard for us to recognize who can be this perfect fitness for us. So if that is the case, then why not like engage in multiple relationships?
Yeah, why not? One can engage. I'm just saying this is how I see things. I'm just sharing my viewpoint. But if it's you think no, it's one needs to engage, then one can engage. What's the problem? I don't know. I mean, I'm not. What I'm saying is, whatever thing in this present world scenario we want to explore. See, this is just one of the proposals there are. There are many other proposals. So one is free to choose that. That's all. Yes,
So
Rajesh.
maybe I can add something to it. So the lot of discussion I'm hearing about when I do this, whether what would the other person do or what would the institution do, right? And maybe your discussion about having maybe one person as a spouse or more than that, right? So I mean, the concept is there is a realization that a person has, and that is that person's realization. And when you realize means it is coming from your clear knowledge of that thing. And your belief comes from that knowledge, right? Whatever that is. That means if something happens, you don't get a doubt on it because you realized it. So basically, when you function from that, it does not come from the standpoint that this is what I expect to happen there. It may not happen. So I'm basically driven on my choices from the realization that I have. And so it really is what happens in another scenario is we do a certain action expecting a certain outcome of it. And if that doesn't happen, we doubt. And then we go back and change that. So that's not at the level of where you have a clear realization of what is that you're doing, why you're doing, right? So that only could happen at the individual level. Maybe the other person may change, may not change. You have no control on that. So that's one way to look at it.
Can I also just add to that?
Yeah, please.
Although I agree with what you're saying, one will realize if this is how the order is, then one would realize that this is it. But then the question also becomes, why is this the order and not something else? I mean, I think we have a need to understand at different levels, and logic of it is one of those levels also. So, I mean, I think one thing that strikes me is we've been thinking about this for a few days. So the one thing that strikes me is that this kind of intimacy and just transparency, being able to see each other. I think you already mentioned it. Maybe I'm just rephrasing.
Yeah, sure.
It takes a certain amount of dedicated time and I mean, it's a lengthy process, and we are limited. So it would only be possible with limited people. I mean, ideally, you want to be doing it. I mean, why would we even consider if we have to have one partner with which we are co-creating a family or whatever life, society, a participation? Why would we even be considering multiple? Would be if we feel that one would not be enough. But for one to be enough, that intimacy needs to develop. For that intimacy to develop, you need to have the realization, understanding, common understanding of goals and purpose, and also secondly, a significant amount of time spent with each other, finding out the skill of behavior, recognizing each other, as you were saying. And I mean, very common subhuman experience also shows that if you're thinking of something or you're experiencing something and you share it with, say, I'm thinking about it constantly and I share it with, say, mummy, and the potency and the immediacy of it and how I'm feeling in that moment about it will not be the same when I have to, say, share it with Veda next. So I think the thing about having one partner is that you're constantly seeing each other. You're there. If there are multiple, how many times will you share the same thing with all of them? I mean, it's a silly thing, but this is what was coming to mind.
The nature of the interaction in this relationship is, the dynamics are very different. I think she's trying to point that out, that you need time and you need attention of a certain quality to nurture this relationship, without which you don't get the fruits of this relationship. The proposals which are coming to us for multiple partners is from the worldview of I'm a body, I have a limited time, I have to consume maximum. There. But anyway, this is one opinion. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So shall we move ahead? Let's go to the policy part. We've done this is the what determines the ethics, responsible behavior in social spheres. Now policy in institutional participation. Okay? So mind, body, wealth. What are these three things? These are the three assets that we have, we can utilize. Right? Mind, body and wealth are the three assets that we can invest in living. Right? According to you guys, which is the most important asset in this? I can't hear you. Mind. Okay. And the second most? And third one? Okay, good. Good student. Huh? Yeah, now I'm a classroom teacher. Okay. Now look at your life. Whatever you're living. Okay? Which is highest priority right now? Second highest. And third one? I'm not saying anything. Whatever was said by you. You are saying the highest priority is mind. The second important thing is body, and third is wealth. But in living priority, this is most important, this is second, and this is third. So you see the contradiction in living and thinking? This is the disharmony that we have internally. Right? So these three are our assets which we can invest in living. Right? So the simple policy is one line. Right utilization and protection of assets, which is mind, body and wealth. Protection or conservation or security or whatever. The protection is a good word. Okay? Right utilization of mind, right utilization of body, right utilization of wealth, and protection of mind, protection of body, and protection of wealth. It is such a simple thing, one line thing, which is applicable from family, say to a village, to a city, to a state, to a nation, to the whole humankind. This is just this much simple policy which has to be followed. Wherever we are working, whatever we are doing, these are the three things we are utilizing. And all we have to ensure is we rightly utilize this, rightly utilize this, rightly utilize this. And we protect this, and protect this. Even as a national government, you have to do this. Even as a Gram Panchayat, you have to do this. Even as a family, this is all you have to do. Our group was once talking to the Chief Justice of India, Justice Venkatachalaya. He was there in 90s. So he was asked about this. So what do you think about policies? Do you know all the policies on which you judge? He says, no, I don't know. So how do you do it? He says, I have a team of lawyers. And my team of lawyers has a team of lawyers. And still can you cover it? No. It's too vast. It's so complicated that Chief Justice of India cannot cover it. Policy means in any interaction that we are together, how are we going to coordinate? What for what goals? In what manner? This is policy. Like there is a policy we are using in this workshop. Right? We will go through this content every day for 6 hours. There are times for meals. There is time for rest. Right? So, the policy is the constraints and the mechanisms that we devise for working together. So, all the policy is supposed to ensure is this. This cannot be violated. If we ensure this, everything built on above this will work fine. You can't have a, say, a organization where wealth is being wasted. Right? Your family cannot waste wealth. If it is not being rightly utilized, it will be wasteful. Right? You can't have a family where bodies are being wasted. You can't have mind which are pursuing futile things. They are being wasted. So when we organize ourselves as families, we have to ensure there is the right utilization of these three. So how do we do that? Next. So right utilization. Yeah, any question? Yeah. Give her the mic, please. Your body.
I thought it's an analogy we are using
No.
for something.
See, don't you invest your, in Hindi the term is man tan dhan. Right? So anything we have to do, we use our minds, we use our bodies, and we use our resources to get that done. That is what we are talking about. Okay? So what is the right utilization of the mind? Use of mind for living with humanness. So the thoughts focused around that. Desires focused around that. Understanding for this. Decision making for this. This, would you call this as right utilization of mind? If you were focused on humanness? Okay. What is the right utilization of body? Doing useful production work and services. What we earlier called humane production and service, right? Humane occupation. So, engaging in humane occupation, which in other words is doing useful production work and service. Okay. The second part is, which is important, more production, less consumption. We talked about this. This is a very good balancing act for body. If you're engaged, first you need to be engaged in some product or service, and that work which you're doing should be, in comparison to consumption, more than that. Right? This keeps the body healthy. Rishta, anything? Saying something?
I was just thinking that how it's usually phrased is production more than the need for consumption, and usually the focus goes on production more and not need.
Right. Right. Do you want to correct that? What is the right utilization of wealth? Right? So there are 4 or 5 things in this steps. One is consumption, one is utilization for family needs, the other is utilization of the remaining material for the larger needs of the society, and fourth is the investment of that wealth for continuity of the process. Right? I'll take one example by which you can understand. When I started farming in 2008 May, we did a crop of rice. Right? So we got about 25 kgs of rice, or actually around 25 quintals, which is about 2500 kgs. But basically the crop you get is that paddy. So about 400 kgs of paddy, which is equivalent to about 2500 kgs of rice. We are a family of 4. We could only, how much rice can we eat? So the next crop will come next year. So for 1 year, if we look at it, 4 of us, maximum the amount of rice we ate at that time, we calculated, would be 70, 80 kgs. So say 100 kgs. So out of 2500 kgs, only 100 kgs we can consume as rice for a family. But we have other needs in family, right? We need clothing, we need other things. So we sold about 2000 kgs for meeting out our other needs, right? And still we had about 400 kgs rice left, right? Out of which about 200 kgs or 150 or so, we use for distribution amongst our friends and families, right? So say 200. And we had to keep about 50 kgs or so paddy for the next crop, right? So 100 kg of paddy is about, say, 60, 65 kgs of rice. So about that much paddy we had kept for seed. Why do we need to keep seed? For this, for the continuity process. Okay, that is one utilization. So this is one utilization, this is one utilization. Now, suppose I still have 100 kgs of rice left. I've fulfilled our consumption needs, I've fulfilled our need for our other family requirements, right? Social needs, and the continuity needs. What do I do with the rest? So you can give it for the community. What does that help in? What does that achieve? One, relationship with the community, right? So there is a school in our village where there is a what do you call? Daily meal. Yeah. The schools give lunch to the children, so we can provide some grain for that. That is acknowledged, right? And it also ensures, like for example, another example is like if you have fruit trees, no? Like we used to have a lychee tree in Dehradun, and when it used to fruit, so much fruit used to come at the same time. For 20 days, there should be so much lychee that we couldn't eat, right? So either we could sell all of it in the market, but like we went to villages and other places in hills, apricots and things like that. So people who have fruit trees and who are not interested in selling too much, they allow everybody else to eat it at that time. Otherwise, it will go waste. It will rot away and waste away. So they don't want it to rot. So some part they sell in the market, but some part they distribute freely. That's the tradition I've seen in villages, mostly. So, because in India at one time, food was never sold. So this giving to the society to to people who don't have it. It establishes a relationship with them, and therefore there is a build of trust. And because of trust, they will form a kind of protection around you. If they ever didn't have it and you had it, then there is going to be a temptation for some of them to come and take by illicit means. So if you are sharing it, then you're eliminating some part of that need. Right? So that is one way of utilization. So these are the 4 ways of utilizing the wealth. Wealth is not only money. In fact, in money terms, that is another thing which you have to see. At that time when I was doing this was 2008. At that time, the paddy rate was 800 rupees for 100 kgs. Right? So do the calculation. Any young person here? There were 40, 100. You need a calculator. Huh? Yeah, and we had 100 kgs. So it was worth 32,000 rupees. It did? Good. So how much is it in money wise? Only 32,000 rupees. And how much is it as rice? My family cannot consume more than 100 kg. So it's, if we were to take equivalent families, so it is enough for say 40 families. Enough for 40 families for the whole year. So if you look at the object, then it gives you a sense of abundance. There's so much there. But if you look at the money part of it, the price of it, it doesn't feel anything. 32,000 rupees is nothing. Right? So when you convert objects to money, the sense of abundance and well-being vanishes. Right? That's why I feel, I mean, it's definitely not easy for everyone, but you should have some land of your own. Why? If you have land, you can grow your own food. If you have to buy your food, life is going to be very difficult soon. If you have your own water, own meaning access to water in nature, will be very helpful. Because the way things are going, soon food and water are going to be scarce things. Right? Like air is going to be scarce. Fresh air. Anyway. So this is the right utilization of things. How do you protect the mind, body and wealth? Next. So, mind can be protected because if it is being rightly utilized, we will have that. Otherwise, if we don't have that, then it can waver off from here. Like we can try and think of, okay, I'll do this. But if you don't have spiritual realization, then it will not become a part of your nature. Okay? So if you really want to protect your mind, this is where you need to reach. This protects the mind. How do you protect your body? Health, education, nutrition, hygiene, and self-discipline. This last part is very important. Rest you are aware of. Without self-discipline, we lose health. Right? और डाल दिया कुछ? हाँ, planetary balance. Say what you want to say with this.
Even if I am completely, I mean, I'm very well educated in health, nutrition, very hygienic, very self-disciplined. If the planet is undergoing,
Ecosystem
is collapsing, planet is undergoing issues, and there are like a million things that can still happen to me and my family.
Right. So, if you want to protect the bodies of the humankind, this is needed. Balance on the planetary level or ecosystem balance. How do you protect wealth? So, protection in storage, protection in transportation, and protection of sources. What is protection of sources? Other two I am sure you can understand. So like our food is grown in soil, we need to protect the soil. We can't let it deteriorate. Similarly, we need water. Our water resources. I mean, our underground water tables are going down fast. This is very dangerous. Right? Our rivers are polluted and drying up. We need to protect these. Right? So food, water, air sources, mineral sources, we need to protect. How do you protect them? Through right utilization. You only utilize which is rejuvenated in nature by its processes. You don't take more than what can be regenerated by the natural process. So, if you want to take underground water, take that much which is replenished. But if you do it in excess, then the water table will deplete. So that balance has to be learned. So in case of absence of right utilization and protection of mind, body and wealth, in social institution results in exploitation, struggle and war. Any questions, clarification on this part?
Social institutions would include the family, the community, the government, the
Governments, local governments,
the panchayat,
all type of organizations.
all type of So I have a question. If we, I mean, one of the spiritual teaching is also like not too much attachment to the body, because it then creates anxiety. So one is that, and if uh, the contradiction is would be another aspect is like you should live in the present and not think too much about the future, or not plan too much about the future, but the body is still there. So these are kind of in contradiction to each other.
Yeah, but we didn't talk about any of these two here, no?
Like if we talk about the planetary balance,
You mean to say don't worry about future, stay in present?
Yeah.
Well, this is a preaching, but who has lived this? Have you lived this? I have not been able to live it.
True.
Every thought is coming with some sense of past and some sense of future. That is what defines my present. What I want to see in future defines what I'm going to do today, so that I can work towards that future. And what has happened in the past is enabling me to do something today. That happens with me. You tell about yourself.
Yeah, it's the same.
The same.
If we take larger institutions and complex institutions, say like a state.
Just a minute. I just want to add one line to that. Right? So, as I said earlier, this Jeevan Vidya is for living like normal human beings. I don't know about special people who could do this, but normal human beings are not able to do this. But you don't worry about future, you don't refer to your past or humankind's past. Yeah.
So when we say it, the way I have been able to understand living in the present is when we keep in mind all the principles and laws that govern nature, and we are also part of that, and our relationships are also part of it. Then when we keep those in mind, and then we live, interact at now, or we plan for the future, but at the where we keeping those principles and laws in mind, then we're living in the present.
So what she's saying is that there are some universal truth. Once you become you realize universal truth, then you are in living in present, because that is universal. It is free of all space and time. Right? So for that you have to become realized, if you want to take that interpretation there. Right? But before that realization, if we were to talk about as normal people today, we will refer to our past and present. Right? We all do. Yes, sir.
No, what I was saying, that if we take larger and complex institutions, say like a state, and we want to frame a policy, maybe a food policy, employment policy, industrial policy.
Yeah.
Or you may choose your own nomenclature in terms of
Yeah,
Jeevan Vidya.
Yeah.
If you the present distribution is not acceptable. So suppose we as a class are given assignment that you draft a policy, you draft an employment policy in accordance with Jeevan Vidya based on these parameters. So what would look like, I mean, in concrete terms, what will be the steps, what will be the do's and don'ts? Because it's not at individual level, because the policy is always for a larger.
Yeah, right. So the policy, see, one who can design a policy, who has studied that at that level. Like I've studied family, so maybe I can help design a policy for a family. If you've studied a village or a town, maybe you can decide on how to form a policy for that, because there are a lot of things. Somebody who's studied a state or nation, they can decide a policy on that. Somebody's studied international things, they can. What is being said is, you can't violate this at any juncture. Whatever the intricacies there are, the minds have to be, the promotion has to be for right utilization of mind and protection of mind, right utilization of body and
this is acceptable. There is no dispute about that.
Yes.
This is
the rest
acceptable.
is skill part, technical details.
No, that is the main challenge. How do you put in actionable proposals?
Yeah. Like we work for some educational policies. We can share that with you.
Yeah, question.
One minute. One point. In state policy, there are generally, because I have worked in bureaucracy, there are forces which pull in different directions.
Right.
And most of the times they are in opposite directions.
Right.
Say if we talk of food policy, there are areas where food is very surplus, food is very short. Then there is a question of distribution.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm just putting in a very rough this thing, not in detail. So the challenge comes when the policy requirement is not linear.
Right. Yeah, I understand that part. What I'm saying is, like suppose you have to devise a policy for some Bhavna Institute. Right? There are many complex things here too. There are some local community people who are working here. Some people have migrated from outside who come and living here and doing the work. There is some workshops happening. They're making some policy papers. They're going out and doing something. Food is made for them. Many things are there. So how do you make a policy for such an organization? So that policy will be made by people who are involved in this. Right? And whatever they decide cannot violate this part. The mechanisms right now we are doing is, like for example, we are making policies which are leading to a lot of waste of wealth, a lot of bad effect on bodies of the citizens, and messing up with the minds of the people. Like the social media has really messed up the communities and societies. If you keep this at the base and you build on this, and you keep checking whether this is not, whether this is being violated or not, or is this being respected or not, then these, whatever you need at different levels, whatever you need, decisions you need to make, they get fine tuned to this. That is one point. Second point is, who will implement this policy? This policy will only be implemented by people who study this, who start understanding this. They are the people. The problem has not been the issue, like we have devised so many mechanisms of correcting ourselves. Sometimes it is about, So the order which comes, when we talk about institutions, it is an order, it's an organization. And this organization or order can either be self-motivated or imposed. When it is imposed, it has to be power-centric. All our structures right now are power-centric. There is no self-motivated, self-organized structures, not even families. They are organized on basis of pressure from outside. Next. So in these structures, the policy which is formed, like for example, this is one set. Stopping mistakes with mistakes. Stopping crimes with more crimes. Stopping wars with more wars. This is written in all constitutions, all the 300 odd constitutions on this planet right now. They all follow this policy. If a child is making a mistake, punish them. That's just another mistake, trying to stop the other mistake. Somebody has committed a crime, put them away, or beat them, or kill them. Right? Or trying to stop wars by war. World wars were supposed to end all the wars. Mahabharata was supposed to end all wars. Our problem is this. We believe that without power, there cannot be no order. It has to be imposed. Things can only be controlled from outside. The whole message of coexistence is things are self-regulated from inside, and they organize in order if they are allowed to. For humans, this allowance is through awareness. When they become educated through coexistential education, that awareness allows them to organize themselves properly. This can't be imposed from outside. That is the main issue. Right? This mechanism we are still using. This is so surprising, no? If this was working, the mistakes would have been less, crimes would have been less, wars would have been less. What do you think? As we have gone along history, have they decreased or increased? So at least we must question this mechanism. How can you do this? How can you stop crime with crime? I mean, okay, somebody murdered somebody, you killed him. Now have murders stopped? Or have the number of murders increased in society? Somebody has done theft, we are putting them in jail. The jails are overflowing, prisons. But has the incidence of thefts gone down or increased? We are not questioning these things. And this is what we are teaching in schools and colleges and universities right now. Everywhere you are in any institution, there is this policy of carrot and stick as the main mechanism. Anyway, that was part. This should have been talked about maybe initially, as Drishta had suggested. Okay, gone. The bell has gone. Our time is over for today. We've talked about the humane conduct, right? This was the third part, policy, which is in terms of the institutional conduct. And then before that, we talked about the social conduct in form of ethics. And then before that, we had talked about the interpersonal conduct in relationships in form of values, right? So have we shared the PPT? Just export that and send it into the group. Yeah, please.
It's the same like we contribution in terms of goods and services in the like ecosystem with the consumption of the resources. Yeah, that we discussed in the previous. Is it the same?
Same as what?
Like, is it the same concept? Like production in terms of goods and services that we are producing in the
Yes.
like coexistence,
Yeah.
as compared to the consumption that we are consuming in terms of the different resources.
Yes.
So how we can measure this? Like how we can quantify it?
Acha. So how do we know we are doing more or less? Yeah. Right. That's a good question. So you can evaluate this by looking at, see, first was like, what is my consumption rates, that you can understand. How much food am I using, how much clothing I am using, how much shelter I am using, how many telecommunication media I am using, and transportation. These are 5 major areas, right? This is where consumption takes place. So we can do a calculation on that, right? And on basis of that, we can see how much production I'm doing, helping and doing. And we can compare. Right now, because we don't have a system which is based on comparing things on basis of labor, human labor efforts, do it in the beginning in terms of money. Start with that. That is the valuation system with us. Slowly, as the awareness will grow, we'll be able to evaluate it further. Right? So basically, how much human effort and how much resources are going into it. That is the criteria for evaluating it. Right? So like, for example, a mobile phone, how much material has gone into it? And for procuring this material, raw material, and what we saw in that story of stuff, from raw material stage to final stage, how much has gone into this? And how much do I need it? Right? For example, if you look at telecommunication right now, if this is being controlled by the markets. But if we're just to look at the utility of the whole thing, do we all need a phone in our hands? Right? So this whole organization, or maybe this whole village, can do very well with one phone. Right? Or maybe 2 phones, or maybe 10 phones, I don't know. Right? Why do we need a phone? Or maybe some people have more than one phone. Even I have 2 SIMs in this. Right? So we have not thought about this. The number of vehicles running on the roads. Why are we traveling so much? So we have to also look at our end of consumption, and we have to look at what is the effort going, what is the cost of this thing. Like they were taught. That's why we showed the documentary story of stuff. The actual cost of these things is very high. So everybody having a phone is not affordable for this planet. Right? They were saying we need 5 planets. Where are we going to get 5 planets from at this rate of consumption? Right?
One more thing, like if in the consumption, do we consider the free resources like air, water in the consumption part, or only the like paid services?
So all resources, natural resources, are free, and all the journey starts from free only. It is just because of power who controls these. Like for example, earlier water was free, now it started selling. Till now air was free. Soon there will be oxygen cylinders which will be selling. At one time land was free. Now it is selling. So somebody's put it under their control and they're doing it. So we can use, see, nobody owns anything. That's the main point to understand, realize. But Right now, we can't violate that system which is there, but we can work to change the system now, slowly, 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 slowly. So some cost will go because of the present system, right? But we need to understand what do we really need? How much do we need it? So that overconsumption tendencies we have to come out of. And then how much are we contributing? Right? So one can live very comfortably in very optimized resources and consumption. Okay, I think we are overshooting our time. Thank you.